So, we've got an update to what we covered yesterday on the NHS and their decision to allow to treat anyone. And if the woman objects to being filled up by a she's evil and needs to get charged with a hate crime. Well,
wait, that's weird. The Guardian is actually on the right side of this?
I know,
I mean,
right?
You can see in the article, they're trying to be like, the trans rights they are really, really, really important. But this is actually against the law.
They're really trying to fence it, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to fence it, but even they fell off the fence on this one.
Yeah. I was telling my partner about this, and she was just like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
The best part was, and I assume if you went over it yesterday, you went over this, but it was the dementia thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
God,
if an old granny with dementia doesn't want to have a man do personal care or intimate examinations, then we need to explain to her why it's wrong. And it's like,
I was going to say,
are you kidding? Have you ever worked with anyone with dementia?
Patients with dementia should be challenged. I'm like, mate, they already fucking are.
But no.
But they're going with the U.S. solution. We just put them in power.
Clearly. But no, of course, the NHS thinks it's perfectly okay for ma'am in a dress to feel up grandma, and if grandma freaks out because there's clearly a beard on that woman, grandma's evil and needs to be punished for it.
All you have to do to subvert this is say, I would like a biological woman to do the examination.
No penises.
Biological woman. Fucking subvert that.
I do that all the time, but I get told off.
Yeah, apparently they can refuse care if you do that. Imagine refusing care to grandma because you send a biological man in there and she's freaking out because she doesn't understand your pronoun nonsense and thinks that he's trying to rape her.
Because he probably is.
Your grandma, she unfortunately didn't, subscribe to our weird woke ideology, so I'm going to let her fucking die.
That's it. Oh, we can't provide care for her because she's refused care from ma'am over there. Therefore, that means that her condition's terminal, so we need to subscribe her to maid.
The thing is, like, having worked in care, like, sometimes, like, they can get certainly more confused if there's a man in there and they don't realize why they're being undressed, and well, obviously their mind jumps to, well, this man's trying to undress me, he's probably trying to attack me. But even in cases where you've got a woman in there helping them, sometimes that confusion still comes into play, and sometimes they just don't like certain people's faces.
Yep.
You remind them of someone that they used to know, and that they're just having nothing to do with you.
I mean, telling them that it should be challenged, dementia should be challenged, as if dementia isn't fucking awful enough as it is for the individual going through it. That's just, I don't know, it's fucking sick. Frankly.
And of course, if you go in to see grandma, and grandma's being undressed by a man, and you object to it, they'll tell you to leave. Unbelievable.
Basically, I always ask for a biological woman to fill me up when I'm at the hospital, but apparently when I do it, I'm a creep.
Have you tried wearing a dress?
Yeah, thanks. Wear a dress. I want to see a photo of that.
God, you're going to be sorry because I'm sure it's going to happen.
Well,
yeah.
Just thinking then, under this kind of train of logic, if you remember, what was the name of that person who basically took a bunch of beauticians to court because they wouldn't wax her balls?
Jessica Yaniv.
Oh, yeah.
Like, under this logic, if a man goes to the hospital and he's like, no, I only want, like, female nurses to do my intimate exams and my bath and stuff, and then they're getting off on it. Like, that's totally fine.
That's it.
Especially with things like gynecology, you should have the right to say, yeah, I'm not so comfortable with having a male gynecologist. Can I have a woman come in and examine me?
Yeah,
instead?
but
they send in a fucking 6'5", I'm a ma'am, and then examine me.
The NHS the NHS is so fucking gone that if man goes in and asks for a gynecology appointment, they'll give it to him.
I know. It's fucking stupid.
And prescribe birth control on top of it.
If I was taking my daughter, let's say hypothetical daughter, and she had to go see the gynecologist for whatever reason, she wanted a female examiner, and they sent in a and then they were starting to refuse care. That probably me and my daughter would be the only ones walking out that room, frankly.
Yeah, those kind of exams, they're bad enough.
Yeah.
It's bad enough when you've got, a nice female nurse in there who's like, okay, I'm just gonna, like, just fucking get her over it.
I mean, my mum's told me stories. Like, she didn't know, apparently, that there were smaller speculums. So she's had a horrible time her entire life with them, apparently.
Ooh.
Bastards.
Well, occasionally they're like, I can't quite find it. Hang on a second. You're like,
I mean, the closest equivalent for a guy is having a prostate exam, and even that is much more bearable because it's just slipping a finger up there. You know? Having a fucking metal implement
from them. And they're like, I'm just gonna have a look around, see if I can find it.
Well, I mean,
that's the
I'm
worst
saying
thing.
the same thing, but it's been more intimate.
That's the thing. It's such an intimate thing to have done. You need to be made as comfortable as humanly possible. And if you're not comfortable with the person examining you, like what the fuck are you doing? You're just actually putting a position where this person is actually being traumatized by what you're doing.
Well, the thing is, you're going to make it worse in that case as well, because obviously the more tense you are, the more it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So this article from The Guardian over there on Turf Island says patients are supposed to be at the heart of everything the NHS does. Really? When the fuck did that happen? This is considered such an important principle that a decade ago, the fledgling NHS constitution was rewritten after the mid-staff scandal in which they murdered a bunch of patients, apparently. Due to incompetence, I'm assuming.
That's nothing new.
So, the NHS Confederation, the membership body for the National Hate Service providers, published guidance that appears to cut this ethos adrift. Its stated objectives are incredibly important. Supporting that's not important. By helping healthcare leaders to understand their needs and address workplace discrimination they may face. Yeah, I've got some discrimination for you. You walk into the hospital, we shoot you. How's that sound?
I'm sorry, but like, as hard as I'm sure gender dysphoria is, your mental illness isn't really my concern as a patient.
Well, that's it. Your mental illness does not shape my reality.
Like, I'm in there for healthcare. That's already stressful enough. Like, that can be fucking traumatizing enough on its own without having to try and navigate your fucking mental health.
Yeah,
you know, I think this actually
you go in for medical treatment and you've got some obviously deranged lunatic coming up trying to convince you to join their suicide cult.
I think this also goes back to what we said yesterday. You're looking at the person who's the patient and their needs and what's important to them. And at this point, it's like, why are we putting the staff's needs above the patient's needs?
I mean, you've been in the NHS, right? Like, the patient's needs are very, very rarely first.
My mum worked in the NHS for a very, very long time, and it's fucking ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much bureaucracy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I totally understand the situation, and I have all the information I need, but see, I couldn't check this one box.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not much we can do.
Yeah, so, the article says, but also includes guides on how to handle requests for same-sex care that gets the law badly wrong and could lead NHS trusts to unlawfully discriminate against female patients. Yeah, no shit.
Notice how it's not going to be male patients that they're going to
No, they don't give a flying fuck. There are many reasons why some women may prefer female staff, particularly with intimate care such as smear tests. What's that? You don't want some strange dude sticking his fingers up your vagina? How transphobic.
Yeah, I kind of... It must be an absolute nightmare to be a woman in any kind of trouble in the UK right now. Because if you go to a woman's prison as a woman, an actual biological woman, you may have a trans woman roommate, a trans woman guard, and a trans woman doctor.
Yeah.
Well, let's take this to its logical, horrifying conclusion. If a woman goes in wanting to get a rape kit done, and she gets a ma'am coming in, I mean,
I mentioned this to Stormy yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely 100%. Like that's where this really breaks down, because that's the last thing anyone in that situation is going to want to deal with. Like, after such a fucking traumatic situation, is some other fucking pervert coming into their lives.
Yeah, and that to me was that problem. Okay, so basically, she has to get re-traumatized, even if they agree to swap out because of the nature of what she's having done. The trauma's already done.
Mm-hmm.
So the NHS can just go fuck off with this stuff, as far as I'm concerned.
It's like some common sense. Like if they were like, even if they just ask and they're like, well, we have a trans lady on shift. Would that be acceptable? And just at that point, it's patient choice.
I'd
Can't
still,
have that with the NHS.
I still
I
think
was
they
gonna
should
say,
just fuck off with the
patient
whole
choice.
thing.
Didn't they try and get rid of that recently?
Because maybe some people would be okay with that, especially if, assuming that they're not just doing self ID, which they probably are, but if it's somebody who has fully transitioned, maybe people might be like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But no,
Wait.
you'll just get Mam coming in with a bow in his hair.
Yeah.
In his beard.
So the TERF article essentially goes on to say that they may be victims of sexual assault and male contact traumatic. They may have religious beliefs that prohibit. Oh yeah, I want to see how that's going to work. Miss Abdullah comes in for her checkup, and then Mam walks in the room.
Is this article written by a woman?
Of course it is.
I had
Probably.
a feeling it might be.
Sonia Soda
It's
from
funny
the
how
Isle of
feminism
Soda.
does that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they may have simply have a preference relating to privacy and dignity. Well, those don't count anymore, says the NHS. So they also say this is recognised in law written guidance from the Care Quality Commission that says health and care providers must make every effort to respect the patient's preferences for same-sex intimate care. The NHS Confederation cannot override the law and it's not a statutory body. Yet its guidance directly contradicts it. It claims it would be
Oh god, that next section. Yeah, the NHS Confederation cannot override the law and is not a statutory body like the CQC. Yet its guidance directly contradicts it. It claims it would be discriminatory for a patient to refuse to be treated by a trans healthcare professional of the opposite sex unless evidence clinical harm may result. Like they said, legal fucking gibberish. What the fuck are they on about?
This is what happens when you allow activists to start making decisions in areas that they're actually not experts in.
They like to sit there and say, "Oh yeah, well the law says this. I'm a free agent of human nature. I have these laws. I'm a common man." All that.
Sounds like
bollocks.
sovereign citizenship for.
Yeah, it's just like they come up with these laws that don't fucking exist for them. They're not real.
Just like transgenderism.
Fucking, and they use it, like you said, they're activists. They use it to try and confuse people into agreeing to terms that aren't legally binding. It's a fear tactic, nothing more.
Yeah.
I don't even know why they were asked in the first place.
We used to have high trust societies. Now we have high fear societies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you, media.
Yeah, it used to be.
Thanks, immigration.
It used to be that you could have.
Well, there it is.
Yeah. It used to be that you could have your family doctor who you'd see from your birth to their death. And you could trust everything they say. The doctor would just go, oh, I'll prescribe you a thing. You won't even fucking think about it. Nowadays.
Know your
I've never seen the same
personality.
doctor twice,
Mhm.
Most of them would even know your medical history almost off by heart. It's like, oh yeah, you came in last week because of this. All right, we'll get this sorted then.
Yeah. And then they'd be like, oh, you've got this problem. Well, it's not your appendix, because I know you had that out when you were 4, because I did surgery. That kind of shit.
Mm.
Yeah. It might be this problem that you have because your grandfather had this.
Yep, and I treated
Oh,
him
yeah.
when
I
he
knew
was
your
your
grandfather
age.
That sort
had
of
this
deal
problem.
where you have
Yeah.
it. Yeah, exactly.
But,
And we don't, one of the biggest problems we had in the UK is we got rid of local hospitals. With so many local hospitals closed down in favor of these massive mega hospitals in the main cities.
Yeah.
And that doesn't help people because now when you actually need a minor surgery or, a minor operation that shouldn't require you to go to a big fucking queue, you can't go to your local hospital. Your local GP is already fully booked because they're under staffed and overworked. There's too many people wanting to use them.
Well, that's it. You shouldn't have to travel for an hour to go to a massive hospital to get a fucking
because you
wart off.
because you have these minor treatments now being sent to operating theaters for major hospitals, which operating theaters should be in those major hospitals used for major operations, not minor inconvenient operations.
Mhm.
That's what the local hospitals were there for. They made a huge difference to the actual local community.
Yeah, so
As you say, good luck getting a GP's appointment in the first place.
I was lucky the other day. I managed to get a GP's appointment by having an emergency appointment, but only because I told them that I had really hurt myself. I had to ham it up in order to just get a fucking appointment.
See, most of the time they're like, please call at 8:30 in the morning, precisely 8:30.
Yep, that was
Ring
what I
at
had to do.
8:30 in the morning, and they're like, you'll sit on hold for 2 minutes while before the lady picks up the phone, and then she's like, I'm really sorry. This is like 8:32.
I'm gonna have to
We're
ask you
out.
details about what the problem is now, even though I'm not the doctor. I'm like, I don't have patient confidentiality with you. Fuck
Mm.
off.
And then she'll be like, well, we haven't actually got any appointments today. If you'd like to call back at 8:30 tomorrow,
Yeah.
and you do this for about a week, you're like, I'm gonna be dead by the time I get an appointment.
Oh, yeah, and then they have the hide to sit there whining about toxic masculinity. Men aren't going to the doctor to get a minor issue looked at, and then it becomes a big issue and they die. Well, no, men have jobs to go to, so they're not going to take 6 months off to try and get a fucking GP appointment.
I noticed in my GP, there's lots of signs up, and even on their voicemail and like call system, it constantly says, "We will not tolerate any kind of abuse of our staff." I'm like, wait, so people are getting angry at you for a reason, and you're going to sit there and like, we won't tolerate the abuse that we receive.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you should pull your fucking finger out and stop being shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Callum's saying that Edinburgh used to have 2 hospitals, one in the north, one in the south, but now they've got rid of one of them, rolled it into the other one, haven't increased the size of anything, and now they can't figure out where everything has gone tits up.
Yeah, it's stupid. I mean, I'm fortunate where I live, there's a local hospital. I actually went there for the out-of-hours service to double check whether I should go to A&E or to go to the local GP, because I was in quite a lot of pain, hurting my back. And basically they gave me some good advice, thankfully. But it's so understaffed that I don't know how anyone gets anything done there, frankly.
And they don't care.
You're almost better off now actually phoning the NHS like non-emergency line.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they'll get you an appointment like round the receptionist. They're like, well, I'll just make an appointment with your GP for tomorrow, or they'll make an appointment for you with the walk-in centers so that you don't have to sit there for like 5 hours.
Yeah, there does seem to be this sort of weird power play with receptionists where they're like, oh, you know what, I don't think you're, hurting enough in order for me to book you in. I think I'm going to make you wait a week because I don't like your way you talk to me on the phone. Like,
well,
fuck off.
When both my arms went numb, they made me wait a month to see a doctor.
Month?
I actually think I had hurt my neck.
Yeah, no, like you don't get paresthesia like that without some sort of serious pressure on your spinal cord or the nerves in it. Usually, I
couldn't get a sick note because I couldn't get to the doctor because they wouldn't see me.
They say with back pain. Sorry, carry on.
I ended up having to use all my holidays for work because I couldn't drive. Because every time I turned my head to do a blind spot check, my legs went numb.
Yeah, see, one of the things I was going to say is on their own guidance for when you need to go to a hospital in an emergency for back pain is if you have incontinence or numbness of the lower limbs or your you sort of like anywhere like below the waist kind of thing, it goes numb, you can't feel your legs, that kind of thing. That's when you're meant to go to a hospital because you've seriously injured yourself and need some help. That's their own guidance. They literally gave me a card with, oh, if you have any of these symptoms, you need to go to A&E. And I was like, Jesus Christ, and they're giving you a month of waiting.
I was in the actual doctors, like in person, in tears. I was like, I can't feel my hands. Like, I can't feel my fucking hands. And she's like, well, I'm really sorry, but I just haven't got anything to give you. I haven't got an appointment to give you. You'll have to come back in a month.
Yep, they're evil.
This is the first date I have for you. And
Base Apes says he's going to go to get a train to Heathrow and seek help in Germany.
Probably be there too, right?
It'll be quicker.
I was going to say, somebody's got some luxurious fucking transport costs he can afford.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So finishing...
This is the envy of the world, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Finally.
World standard public health. So, they also go on to say, the guidance claims it would be probably be discriminatory for a provider to honor a request for same-sex care by excluding if the request has no clinical merit, and opines without basis that there will be extremely few circumstances where this request is lawful, and says patients expressing any such views should be informed of the discriminatory nature of their request and that such behaviour is unacceptable. So if poor Disco ends up down at the hospital, and ma'am comes in, and just goes like, I'd like to see a woman, please. The tranny will run off in tears, and then the hospital administrator will come in and go, how fucking dare you be so discriminatory? Get out! So, yeah, why exactly are we saving the NHS?
And people wonder why I'm so vehemently opposed to a national healthcare system.
There's a running image in my head of a trans man or trans woman walking in to the dementia patient saying, "It's ma'am," before beating them senseless.
Oh,
I mean, is it really that far of a stretch?
Not really.
Who's the guy who does those great comics? I kind of want to see if he could do one.
Stone Toss.
No, the other guy.
G Prime.
They're like the painted ones. Oh God, what's his name?
Is it G Prime?
It might be. I don't remember.
So
George G Prime. Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Alex Settlopoulos.
Yeah.
That one. It isn't just the NHS Confederation. NHS England has itself effectively adopted a blanket policy that trans or non-binary male patients should be placed on female-only wards. Yeah, that seems really helpful. When a woman's in there after she gets raped by a bunch of fucking Muslims, they're just going to stick ma'am in the bed next to her.
It's a fucking parody, I swear.
Absolutely fucking ludicrous.
And the worst part is, they don't see any possible unintended consequences in any of this. It's just like, no, this is fine. This is great, glorious. All power to the NHS.
Well, the NHS has proven themselves to be completely fucking worthless.
Yep. Always have been. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Hey, in the States, you may have to mortgage your house to get to get stitches, but at least they'll see you that decade.
Exactly. And the longest I've had to wait is 2 weeks, and the doctor is on vacation, so that's why.
And that would have been a preference thing. You probably could have had any other doctor if you'd felt like it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually got rid of that doctor after probably shattering part of my kneecap, so it's massively chipped and can't walk properly on that one side. It's like, and he just told me, oh, well, you're getting older. It's like, well, fuck off. I'm going to go get x-rays. It's too late, but I still got x-rays on my terms.
And that's at least the thing. If you go, no, I want the fucking test, you can just pay for it, and you don't have to deal with some dickhead from the NHS going, oh, we can't afford it.
Or we can't accept your tests. You haven't had ours.
Yes, we can't accept your test that's so fucking basic you could teach a 3-year-old to do it.
you got this done private? Oh, I'm so sorry. It doesn't check our checkbox because we didn't do it.
Yeah, despite the fact that it's
You
been a
probably
simple
would've
test
killed me
they've
in the
had since the
process.
60s. If you enjoyed this segment from the Sons of Chardonnay podcast, please consider joining us live exclusively on rumble.com/c/Sons of Chardonnay. A special thanks to our Subscribe Star supporters who you can currently see scrolling past on your screen.